Once again, good evening, everyone. Sorry for the 5 minutes delay. And welcome everyone to the last lecture in our lecture series organizing by Progressive Students Forum TISS. And myself, Fatima Sultana, I am the currently I am the General Secretary of Progressive Student Forum. And this lecture series, to talk about this lecture series, we are conducting this as a part of our 10th year anniversary programs. We have completed 10 years in TISS campus, and this is the first lecture series we have planned as part of this program, which will like a 1 year long programs we have scheduled, and 2 more lecture series on the row. And within this lecture series, we have conducted already 4 lectures with the prominent speakers. We started with the agrarian movement. For that lecture, we had Ashok Davle. He was he's from the All India Kisan Sabha. And secondly, we had on the student movement in India, history and role of student movement in India. For that, Arun Kumar we had. And for the the third lecture was on the trade union movement. For that, Venkatesh Atreya has delivered the lecture. And fourth lecture we had on yesterday, which is delivered by Comrade Subhashni Ali, which is on the topic women's movement in India. Coming to this, this is the last lecture, and which is on the very important topic, that is on the history and the role of anti-caste movement in India. And all of this lecture, like we had got a very good response for the lecture series. We got more than 300 registrations, and like throughout the lectures also, like you people have like that once the COVID started, all the lectures became to online mode. And it was like the situation is also coming to normal, and it was quite difficult to get people to attend online lectures. But for our lectures, we had consistently like a good number of participants, and this lecture, like all these lecture series, we have conducted in a way that more like a closed lecture for a better interaction. And all of these lectures will be available on our social media platform, on our YouTube channel, and you can follow our social media handles, so that the updates will come. And coming to today's lecture, which is on the history and the role of anti-caste movement in India. And we know that when it comes to the Indian society, the caste is one of the unique feature of Indian society, and which is very deeply rooted in our society, and which is also one of the most oppressive tools, which which has caused troubles in the most oppressed sections of our society. And we are conducting this lecture in a context that the anti-caste movement, which is very important. And like there are different contexts why we are conducting this lecture in these times, especially because we know that since the 2014 India is ruling by the Sangha Parivar government, and they are also rewriting the entire history of India and the movements. So we think that this would be a contribution to our scholars and other students and all other sections of society to know the actual history and role of all the people's movement. And along with that, the identity political organization also using the caste movement or like redirecting the like role of caste particularly into one aspect, that is only into identity. But we know that caste is more than just a identity. Like it has a like different aspects. And so these are about the today's lecture. And for that, for our lecture today, we have Comrade BV Raghavulu to deliver and to talk about him. He has been here like part of all the anti-caste movement across the states of India, and he is also one of the strongest voices and vibrant voices of anti-caste movements in Indian society, and he's also very familiar in that field. And he is also like he's also have a very good theoretical understanding, more like a public intellectual, and we want like definitely we want to get a better person more than him to speak about on the anti-caste history and role of anti-caste movement in India today. And he's also working like closely working associated with the Dalit Shoshan Mukti Manch. It is a national level platform for the organization and individuals belonging to various states and working against caste discrimination and social for social justice. So without much delay, I am handing over to Comrade, and I'll just briefly explain the structure of today's event. Our speaker will talk nearly 40 to 45 minutes. After that, we will open the session for question answer. So if you have any questions, you can put it in the chat box. We will take that into our speaker. So yeah, handing over to Comrade. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Fatima, for kind words about me. Today, I was asked to speak on the history and role of anti-caste movement in India. Actually, without discussing about the origin of caste, evolution of caste, and features of caste, and how caste evolved over the centuries to the present state, all these aspects are also important. But I am not going to deal with them. And I think I'm not so fully equipped to deal with them also. But briefly, Fatima touched upon them. And without going into them, even if we want to discuss with that, that will become a very complex subject. And time won't permit us also to deal with these anti-caste movements. So that's why I will confine to the subject given to me, history and role of anti-caste movements in India. Even then, I feel the task assigned to me is huge and complex because the history of anti-caste movements is as old as the history of caste itself. Varna caste system emerged approximately 2,500 years back in 6th and 5th centuries BC. Resistance to the Varna caste system also began as soon as this caste system came into existence. Reviewing this whole experience will be a Herculean task for me. Even then, I will try to present a brief overview of the history of the movements which resisted the caste system over the years. Wherever classes are there, class conflict will be there. This is the axiom made by Karl Marx in his famous Communist Manifesto. And this applies to caste system also. Since the Varna caste system that emerged in India is the frozen form of the class system, conflicts inevitably accompany that system. In this talk, I will present some of Hello, excuse me. Can you hear me? I have changed the. Sorry for the interruption. I have changed the system. Can you hear me now? Can you hear me?
Yes, comrade, you are audible.
Hello.
Yes.
Hello.
Yes, comrade, you are audible, but
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you. We can hear you. Hello, comrade. Can you hear me?
Can you hear me now?
Yeah, you are.
Sorry for the interruption. I tried to change the system, but it didn't work. So I came back to this smartphone.
Okay.
So I'm referring to the statement made by Karl Marx in his Communist Manifesto about classes and class conflict. Wherever classes are there, class conflict will be there. Since the Varna caste system that emerged in India is the frozen form of the class system, conflicts inevitably accompany that system. In this talk, I will briefly present some of the prominent conflicts against the Varna Jati system in the form of anti-caste movements over the long historical period. First resistance came from the Shramana tradition in ancient India. In the early Vedic period, that is between 1500 and 1000 BC, society as a whole was tribal, pastoral, semi-nomadic, and egalitarian. There may be some division of labor and gradations of status, but it is not based on class division of social society. Around 6th century BC, the use of iron tools for crafts and cultivation created conditions for transformation of the comparatively egalitarian Vedic society into Varna divided social order, that is, into a class society. During this period, agriculture became the main productive activity. Settled village life became a norm. Trade and commerce developed. Territorial states came into existence. To govern the social life based on these changes, Varna-based system was established. It was based on birth. Historians call this process as ironization because iron was introduced, tools made of iron was used in agriculture and handicrafts. So that's why it is called ironization. It's also called urbanization. Because of development of agriculture and handicrafts, trade developed. Because of use of iron, the smelting and transport of iron ore, all is developed. So a sort of urbanization also developed during this period. This is called second urbanization. The first urbanization is Indus Valley civilization. This is the second urbanization. And the third aspect is Aryanization. That means introduction of Varna system into vast areas of Gangetic plains. Because by the use of iron axes, they were able to cut down huge forests, and they were able to occupy vast lands of fertile lands of Gangetic plain. In the course of destruction of those forests through iron tools, various tribal groups came into contact, and they were assimilated into the broader Vedic society in the form of jati, that is caste. So this Varna system has transformed into Varna Jati system during this period by inducting various tribal groups which are at a lower level of productive activity. This is called Aryanization. So historians generally call this process as ironization, urbanization, and Aryanization. This Varna divided class society inevitably generated tensions, that is, conflicts. Kshatriyas who functioned as new rulers and Vaishyas who acquired new wealth through trade and commerce developed strong resentment against the importance given to the birth in the Varna system and the Brahminical sacrificial rituals. Because during that period, in sacrificial rituals, huge numbers of cattle were butchered in the yagnas and they had been eaten. So this created a paucity of bullocks, paucity of cattle to work the plowing of the fields. If you want to develop settled agriculture and the productivity of agricultural activities, this has to be prevented. That's why the ahimsa philosophy of Buddhism came in handy to discourage this sacrifice of cattle in yagnas so that those cattle can be utilized to agricultural activities. This milieu threw up a range of non-conformist and Nastikas challenging the infallibility of Vedas, the claims of Brahmin priesthood to higher knowledge and superior status. This reaction is at the base of the rise and origin of new religions, that is Buddhism, Jainism, and Ajivakas. They are called Shramanic as against Brahminic traditions. They are against Brahminic authority, Karmakanda, that is rituals, Varnashma Dharma, that is caste system. They were sharply opposed to the caste system. They preached a system of universal ethics which embraced all without distinction of caste and community. This tradition was egalitarian and universal. Buddha and Jaina and Charvakas and Lokayatas, Ajivakas, atomists, and a lot of groups. Some of them developed as religions, some of them still remained at that time as sects, but all of them were against caste system. These religious movements played an important role in liberating productive forces from the constrictive grip of the Brahminic Vedic ritual system and consolidate the newly emerging state system. But in spite of their resistance, the caste system, they could not prevent the consolidation of the caste system during their existence. They provided with some way of escape to those who found it difficult to adjust themselves to the breakup of the world egalitarian society. The rise of gross social inequalities on account of private property, but it was confined to the monks. No escape was provided to the lay followers who were taught to come to grips with the existing situation. So the weakness of this first anti-caste movement, shamanic tradition, this tradition, this religious philosophy was confined to the monks only, to sannyasis only. This casteless order of sannyasis was the form of anti-caste movement at that period. It was not a movement of ordinary people. In the society, the Varna caste system continued. Those who are not interested in the society, they joined the monks, irrespective of caste, irrespective of gender. They turned into sannyasis and they lived in these ashrams, in sannyasi orders. That's why these Jainism, Buddhism, they might have propagated some ideas among the people, but they were not able to prevent or to transform the Varna Jati system into a real class system without birth-based caste system. So that's why by the end of 6th or 7th century AD, Buddhism, Jainism, they declined and they imbibed various degenerative aspects of caste system also into them. They were, for example, Buddhism, Hinayana, Mahayana, Vajrayana, these type of divisions also took place, and they tried to embrace all the kings and queens and try to earn the goodwill of these people by praising them. That way, that degeneration happened, and because of that, they withered away by the end of 6th century AD. This is the first resistance movement against caste system. The next big challenge to the caste system was posed by the Bhakti movement in the medieval period, starting from 6th century AD and continued up to 17th century. The first wave of Bhakti movement began in the middle of 6th century AD in South India. Shaiva saints known as Nayanars and Vaishnava saints known as Alvars propagated the cult of Bhakti in the countryside centered around temples. Some elements of dissent, protest, reform was there in these movements. Anti-ritualism, equality of caste, fraternity of devotion, equal status of woman with man before God. So Bhakti movement deviated from the orthodox Brahmanism to an extent. Why I am saying to an extent, because it still remained in the fold of Hinduism. Still it remained in propagating the values of Hinduism among the people. The only difference is they abhorred, they detested the intermediary role of Brahmins and their rituals and their mantras. They propagated that there is no need for intermediation to achieve mukti or to reach God. We can, through bhakti, through prayer, we can reach God without any intermediation. In that way, they opposed ritualism, they opposed Brahminism. To that extent, they played a progressive role. But because they are in the confines of the Hindu and Vedic system, ultimately their movements suffered and they withered away by 200 years of their existence. But the preaching of the saints objectively helped the consolidation of Hindu society by weakening the influence of Buddhists and Jainas. The threat of heretical creeds disappearing, the forward surge of the Bhakti cult came to an end by the 6th century. Unrelated to this above Bhakti movement, in the 6th century, Kalabras, a tribal clan in the south of Tamil Nadu, led a revolt against landed Brahmins. They put an end to Brahmadeya rights granted to the Brahmins in the villages. Kalabras were influenced by Buddhist monks. Why I am mentioning this specific event? At that time, many Brahmins from North India, invited by the feudal lords, feudal kings from the south, they migrated to south beyond Vindhyas, and these were granted huge tracts of land. They are called Brahmadaya lands. They started cultivating with the help of the local tribes. Because earlier, these tribes were the owners of those lands. They cultivated those lands and lived freely, independently on them. Because of this encroachment of these Brahmin communities, they felt threatened and they started opposing and fighting back. This is called Kalabras revolt at the time. So it's a form of fighting or opposing Brahminic intervention, invasion to their traditional tribal life. That's why we can think of this movement as also as a form of anti-caste struggle. The second wave of Bhakti movement began in 12th century, expanded to become an all India phenomena by 16th and 17th centuries. Important changes in economic and social life that took place after the establishment of kingdoms by Muslim rulers in India gave impetus to the new type of anti-caste bhakti movements. The monotheistic Islamic tradition, as propagated by the Sufi saints, became an important aspect of religious life of the country. It influenced a section of the people, especially from oppressed artisanal castes, to convert into Islam in the hope of escaping from the humiliation of Brahminic caste system. Between 12th and 13th centuries, the expansion of the commerce, money economy, rapid urbanization that took place in a big way. It was called third urbanization. Because of this Islamic influence, various types of productive techniques entered into India. For example, the water wheel, the stirrup, the gunpowder, and various types of the dome technology, arch technology, and this lime technology. And these new technologies entered into India. They revolutionized the productive systems, especially artisan activity. And this led to a series of urban settlements growing throughout the country. That's why it's called third urban revolution. And various new types of artisanal activities came into existence. And to do that artisanal activity, the earlier caste-based, occupation-based jati system was not suitable. So new type of groups, new type of guilds appeared on the scene to undertake all these activities. Because of all these changes, the conditions of sections of craft workers, traders, large section of cultivators materially improved. But the feudal intermediaries' control of land and backbreaking taxes roused deep discontent among these sections. These sections, to improve their social position and protect their economic interests, patronized and supported the saints of the Bhakti movement. Because Bhakti movement was against caste system, and it is against rituals and the privileges of the Brahmin and the other upper caste sections. That's why naturally these people who are seen as lower status, they turn to the Bhakti movement to show their prosperity and to assert their new status. That is the strength of the Bhakti movement during this period. And one of the important anti-caste movement happened during this period is Veerashaiva revolt. It was the earliest and the most prominent of these anti-caste Bhakti movements. Originated in northwestern Karnataka about the close of the 12th century AD and the beginning of the 13th century, the central figure who built it into a militant anti-caste movement was Basavanna. He strongly opposed traditional Brahminism the division of society into castes, and public worship of idols. The chief supporters of Veerasaiva were traders, peasants, craftsmen, and poor temple priests. In the beginning, it professed fraternal unity of all people, overriding all caste distinctions. But in the course of time, it soon developed hierarchical divisions based on privilege of birth and cleanliness of profession along the lines of caste system. That means it degenerated after a few centuries. It degenerated and it started imitating the values of the caste system. Even now, you can find the Linkayita community. They are the followers of this Veerasaiva sect, but they had forgotten about all the old values of Veerasaiva. Now almost they are following all the oppressive aspects of caste system in Karnataka. The Bhakti movement took a subaltern turn and peaked in the 15th, 16th centuries with the emergence of a remarkable line of subaltern saint poets. The top leaders and saints of this movement include the leather worker Haralaya, the proto-feminist Akka Mahadevi of Karnataka, rationalist Vemanna and carpenter Veerabrahmam of Andhra, tailor Namadev and village servant Chokkamela, the grocer Tukaram, the vegetable grower Savatamali of Maharashtra, the weaver Kabir, the cobbler Ravidas, and the carter Dadu Dayal, the princess Meera, the Khatri Nanak, the porter Gora, the barber Sena of North India. One aspect which we can observe in these saints, they all belong to artisanal communities and lower caste. Their background is from lower caste. Why this happened? As I earlier said, during this period, all these communities, they earned some respect because of their highly technical qualities. But this caste system, this Brahminical system looked down upon them, and they were not given proper respect and status. And that's why they revolted against this caste system and preached against the caste system and rituals also. Some of them even opposed the entire Hindu system of values, and they led their followers to renounce these Hindu practices and started some new religions also. They opposed caste hierarchy, Brahminic ascription, ritual. They are implacable opponents of caste system. They reorganized the dignity of labor, committed to social service, laid emphasis on the spiritual value of every human being. They used the vernacular languages to propagate their ideas. They tried to demolish the barriers that separated the human beings. Many of them wanted to do away with the caste system. Their followers founded independent religious communities in the name of these saints, gathering large number of followers as one of the ways to escape caste boundaries. For example, Kabir Panth, Dadu Panth, Sikh Panth, we can see. Sikh Panth has become a big religion with followers of crores of followers. And even now, Kabir Panth, Ravidas Panth, Dadu Panth are influential among sections of the people in North India. But this movement also gradually lost its steam and its mass base. Now they still remain as vestiges of the earlier radical anti-caste movements. And next wave of anti-caste movements happened during the colonial period. It also produced a variety of movements which opposed caste system. British colonial rule introduced many new elements in the social life of the people. Modern education, Western liberal ideas, wider communication networks, new type of administration, Christian missionary activities. All these elements affected people's lives in a significant way. One of the consequences of these changes was the widespread awakening of political consciousness among the lower castes and communities all over the country in the late 19th and 20th centuries. The impact of colonial rule generated different responses from different social groups, which produced several streams of movements against the rigid hierarchy of the caste system. The first stream of movements were mainly reformist. They confined in the framework of caste system, but they want to reform some evil aspects of the caste system. These movements for social reform, spearheaded by organizations like the Brahma Samaj in Bengal, later Pradhana Samaj in Maharashtra, Ved Samaj in Tamil Nadu, Arya Samaj in Punjab and Northern India. These movements were ideologically guided by the Brahminical values. Most of these reformers belonging to these movements maintained that the original caste system be enshrined in Dharma Shastras was a good institution based on scientific division of labor. But later some degenerate, undemocratic, inhuman practices distorted it. They never took up the cause of lower castes oppressed by the caste system. More sensitive among them voiced concern about caste problem generally, but it was never matched with a concrete plan or action to annihilate the caste monster. Dayanand Saraswati, Vivekananda, and some other reformers belong to this tradition. Even during the freedom movement, Gandhi also followed the ideological position of this reformist movement. He also didn't denounce the caste system. He denounced only untouchability. He praised caste system as a good way of division of labor, a harmonious system of harmonious life. He only criticized some of the evil aspects of untouchability and some other aspects of the caste system. So basically, this is the stream of movements that influenced the main actors of the freedom movement. Next stream is that emerged during this period can be called as Sanskritization stream. During this period, a small layer of educated lower castes and communities acquired awareness of their inhuman condition under the caste system, started questioning. They wanted to improve the status of their castes through the process of so-called Sanskritization, that is, elevating the status through initiating and imitating Brahminical rituals and customs and through education. This is called, M.N. Srinivas called this as Sanskritization. Without overcoming, without destroying the caste, some of the aspects of their own caste will be improved. Some evil practices will be removed from the caste, and some new aspects will be borrowed from the Brahminical and upper caste, and so that they can be treated as equals to the upper caste. This is the thinking behind this movement of Sanskritization. Satnami movement in Chhattisgarh, upper caste movement in Kerala and Tamil Nadu, Chandala movement, Mathua cult of Bengal, Triveni Sangh movement in Bihar were some of these protest movements that happened in the later part of the 19th century that belong to this stream. During this period, another stream of movements that arose are radical. They are radically opposed to the caste system. Some of the leaders who belong to this stream are the following: Jyotirao Phule Ambedkar in Maharashtra, Jyoti Thas Periyar Ramaswamy Naikar in Tamil Nadu, Narayan Guru, Dr. Palpu Kumaranasan, K. Ayyappan, and Ayyakali in Kerala, Bhagyareddy Verma in Andhra, Manguram Chotiram in Punjab, Achtanand Ramcharan in Uttar Pradesh, Harichanda Dhaku, Yuru Chanda, Yogendra Mandal in Bengal, Sonadhan Senapati in Assam were some of these crusaders against caste-based discrimination and domination. The leaders of these anti-caste movements rejected the high caste cultural tradition, fought obnoxious practices of caste system. In Kerala, Narayan Guru established de-Brahmanized temples, ashramas, academic institutions. He tried to subvert the Brahminical hierarchy through his preaching and activities. His call was for one caste, one religion, and one God for man. During this period, and Narayan Guru had a progressive aspect, anti-caste aspect in his crusade. But another aspect is also there. He basically tried to work in the framework of Vedas and Upanishads. He tried that. That aspect we may not accept. But overall, his contribution is very positive, and it led to the anti-caste movements in a big way in the later period in Kerala society. And during this period, a powerful political non-Brahmanism in the then Madras presidency emerged. Periyar was the topmost leader of this stream. He was relentless critic of Brahmanism. The self-respect league formed by Phule by Periyar in 1926 called for the annihilation of caste, opposition to Brahminical hegemony, championed the liberation of lower castes and women. His anti-caste crusade, egalitarian radicalism, aesthetic, atheistic rationalism inspired many generations of youth in Tamil areas. Another great luminary of this period is Jyotirao Phule. He was one of the pioneers in modern India who dedicated his life for the struggle for the liberation of caste-oppressed women and producers. He carried on a multi-pronged fight to build society based on equality, justice, and reason. He made mass education of the oppressed as the focal point of his movement, with the belief that knowledge would generate forces that would destroy the older and emancipate the subordinated. He and his colleagues founded Satyasodak Samaj in 1873. Phule was one of the few at the time to think of Indian society in terms of class. That is his specialty. And later, one of his admirers, Dr. B.R. Ambedkar, in Maharashtra, fought against the caste system and strove towards the goal of annihilation of caste. He wrote a book which was supposed to be delivered in Punjab as a lecture. It was not accepted. He was not allowed to speak there. So it was brought out as in a print form as annihilation of caste. That is, he declared his aim as the annihilation of caste, not reform of caste system. He emphasized that the issue was not merely to remove untouchability, but to radically reorganize Indian society on the principles of equality, fraternity, and liberty. He was influenced by the French Revolution. He was influenced by some of the philosophers, especially Davy from USA. He wanted to radically reorganize Indian society on the principles of equality, fraternity, and liberty. At the same time, he adopted a pragmatic approach, strove for the upliftment of oppressor sections through constitutional means. At the fag end of his life, he thought of conversion as an egalitarian Buddhist religion as a way of emancipation from the horrors of caste. He, along with his followers, embraced Buddhism in 1956. But in spite of embracing Buddhism by him and his followers, now that way of, that solution of changing religion did not yield the expected results, because all those people from the ancient times up to now to escape from the caste system, who migrated into new religions, they took with them the vestiges of caste system into the new religions. Now you can find caste in Muslim communities. You can find caste in Buddhist communities. You can find caste in the Christian communities also in India. That is the obnoxious strength of caste system here. So that proves that caste system is not only related to religious life, it is related to the economic structure of the society. Even if you change the religion, if you don't change the economic structure of the present society, you can't destroy caste system. That is the lesson we have to learn from this experience. And the next phase of anti-caste movements, or rather we can say caste movements, occurred in the post-independence period. With the attainment of independence in 1947, an entirely new situation emerged in the country. A democratic secular constitution drafted by Dr. B.R. Ambedkar was adopted. Important provisions of social justice were also incorporated in it. This constitution abolished untouchability. It declared every citizen in the country as equal before law and gave one person one vote irrespective of caste and other social distinctions. It provided for various measures of positive discrimination in favor of Dalits and tribals. Reservation in government employment, educational institutions, positions in legislatures was provided. Prevention of Atrocities Act was brought to curb the caste atrocities. Various welfare schemes were implemented. Some attempts were made at the undertaking some superficial land reforms also. All these affirmative actions created an initial euphoria that social justice was going to be achieved soon and caste system is going to meet its end. But contrary to the initial expectations, caste consciousness increased. Apparently, caste became strong and entrenched. The agenda of human rights, dignity, education, equality of opportunity are still unrealized. All the affirmative actions made only a minuscule impact on the lives of the lower castes. The onset of liberalization policies in 90s further accentuated their miseries. The changed atmosphere after independence had its impact on the anti-caste movements also. In actual practice, most of the anti-caste movements in this period have been reduced into mere caste movements. This is the experience I want to bring to you in this lecture. In post-independence period, this is the transformation of the anti-caste movements, and this transformation generally weakened the fight and struggle against annihilation of caste. They lost their radical anti-caste edge. Their main focus shifted to the issues of reservation and election. They confined their activities for the realization of more and more reservations and more representation in the elected bodies. The thin layer of middle class that had emerged among the Dalits and other oppressed social groups due to the affirmative actions gradually forgot fighting the caste system and mainly focused on protecting and preserving the existing benefits. The result was that the lives of the vast majority of Dalits who live in villages and urban slums do not figure in the agenda of these movements. The exclusive emphasis on reservations led ultimately to a situation where the demand for positive discrimination was substituted by the demand for proportional distribution of reservations among the population. That means the criteria for reservations, the social criteria of social backwardness was given up. Now everybody, every group, every caste, according to its proportion in this population, will get the reservation. That is the trend, that is the trajectory that is happening in India in regard to the reservations. Another misplaced obsession on elections as a means of fighting for social justice led to the undermining of the importance of anti-caste movements. It was projected that political power could be attained through the unity of SC, ST, BC, and minorities, that is Bahujans, and that the power could be used in the interests of the socially oppressed. The name of Bahujan eliminates, it covers up the difference between oppressed, exploited, and oppressors and exploiters. Contradictions were covered up, leading to the dilution of radicalism of the anti-caste movement. In spite of the weaknesses of the anti-caste movements, some important struggle took place in this period also. The most prominent was the Dalit Panther revolt in 1992. Inspired by the Black Power movement in the United States, a section of the radicalized Dalit youth formed militant organizations called Dalit Panthers in 1972 in Mumbai. Initially, this movement promised to throw people Dalit politics, but soon it disintegrated into many factions, and the ruling class was able to co-opt some of these factions. Many other struggles also took place during this period, but they were mainly the outcome of the reaction to the cruel atrocities perpetrated by the dominant castes and Dalits. Important examples were Kilvenmani, Karamchedu, and Chunduru, and Lakshmipeta, and Kailanji, etc. But the so-called anti-caste movements, they are under an impression that certain aspects of their demands may serve to attain social justice and they may lead to elimination of caste system. But they were wrong. For example, from the beginning, embracing another religion was thought to be a solution for escaping from the clutches of Brahminic Varna caste system. As I explained earlier, it was not. And the belief that presence of members of Dalits and other weaker sections who benefited from the reservations, who entered into the bureaucracy, would protect the weaker sections and prove that proved a mirage. Experience shows that the workings of the system would not allow the Dalits in bureaucracy to use the system in Dalits' interests. Many a time, the members in the administration became cogs in the system serving the interests of the ruling classes. And some people think that gaining positions in the state structure by votaries of identity politics will usher in social justice for oppressed people. But the experience of BSP experiment in UP amply proves that without changing property relations, no fundamental change can be made in oppressive caste system. Some assumed that caste would break down under the intense pressure of competitive forces of the free market. It was expected liberalization would lead to the weakening of the caste, but nothing happened. After 3 decades of liberalization, we see caste strengthened itself. At the most, the activities of the anti-caste, so-called anti-caste movements in this period are aimed at some reforms or improvement of livelihoods in the existing caste framework, not for annihilation of caste system. Betterment of conditions of the members of an oppressed caste should be certainly an important aim of the anti-caste movement, but that can't be an end. Ending of the caste system, it should itself should be the aim of the movement. Any movement which is serious about annihilation of caste can't avoid thinking in terms of radical change in the economic social structure of the present society. Unless the vice-like grip of upper and dominant castes on land in rural areas is broken and their traditional power is weakened, mere legal remedies are not going to eliminate social and caste oppression. Under capitalism, caste and social inequalities in many ways are helping capital to earn super profits and to keep toilers divided. Instead of combating feudalism and capitalism in India, and the capitalism and Brahminism had an alliance and compromised with feudal elements in perpetuating the caste system. That's why Ambedkar said that Brahminism and capitalism were the enemies of the oppressed people. Therefore, fighting the annihilation of caste is closely entwined with the struggle to replace capitalism with an egalitarian society. To achieve this broadest unity of the oppressed and exploited, is to be forged. Caste is hierarchy seeking. It is antithetical to the concept of unity. This understanding should guide any genuine anti-caste movement in present period. At present, basing only on caste, we can't build the widest unity necessary to annihilate the caste system. Only a class-based approach can unify the oppressed and the exploited against the caste. If this type of ideological mooring is not permeated in the anti-caste movements, and many of the so-called anti-caste movement leaders from the anti-caste movements, they, at one point of time, they may be radical, but later most of them or some of them are being co-opted by the ruling class parties. There are many examples of that. Even most radical of the individuals, they ultimately being co-opted by the ruling parties. The unfortunate thing is some of these people are not afraid of even joining BJP and communal forces and allow the perpetuation of Manu Dharma in our country. That is the sad state of affairs now. And we are here, we have to work for attaining a real ideological position to reorient the anti-caste movements in the direction of elimination of caste system and fighting for the casteless society. That means a classless society also. These are some of the ideas I want to present before you. And as I initially told you that I have not dealt with the origins or nature or evolution of caste system. I think that is not the purview of this lecture also. I think you would appreciate my labors in presenting this thing. Thank you very much for giving me this opportunity to speak before you. Thank you, and I'm grateful to you also, my young friends and comrades. Thank you.
Thank you, comrade. Thank you for such an elaborative explanation on the anti-caste movement, role of history and role of anti-caste movement. So we have received a few questions, and some of the questions I think you have already covered. But I'll read. If you have anything to say more, we can take it up. Otherwise, we can go to next question. So the first question, yeah, I can read.
I have read one question about the role of communist movement in the struggle against anti-caste system during this period. I can proudly say that the communists are at the forefront of fighting against the caste system. But the only thing is they have not formed separate caste organizations. If you go through the history of the communist movement in India in 1921, when the Communist Party was formed, one of the important aspects of their program, although it was not written, is fighting against the caste system. In 1993 at Meerut, when all these communists were arrested and produced before the court, they gave a lengthy statement. If you go through that statement, one of the important aspects of that policy statement is fighting against caste system. And it's very interesting. They told the court, without destroying caste system, the Indian society could not progress. That was the statement given at that point of time. Like that, if you go through many documents, you can find. You see, the greatest hero of our independence movement, Bhagat Singh, he later joined the communist, not joined, he supported the communist movement. He wrote articles on caste system and socialism and atheism. In his presentation, in his writing on caste system also, he categorically told that unless caste system is, and all the great communists, can you hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you, but your camera.
Okay. All the great communists in India, take for example, Sundaraya, EMS Namboodirpad, A.K. Gopalan, and B.T. Randive, and in many other states, Mure from Maharashtra, many of the communist leaders, they started their life fighting against caste in their midst. And through that process, they became communists. So it became a part of that movement. And also you take, for example, Varli struggle, Telangana armed struggle, and Tebaga struggle. In all these struggles, as a part of the agrarian movement, the fight against caste system also uh, intermingled, combined with those struggles. Even now, if you go to those places, even though communist movement became weakened in those places, you can find the traces of that anti-caste struggles that were conducted by the relatively the
Comrade, hello. Comrade, you are on mute. Hello, comrade. Am I audible to you? You are on mute. Like we cannot hear you.
okay,
Now it's now.
a bit louder. You can speak. I have answered one question I have seen on the screen.
Yeah.
The other question.
We can. There is other question which is also related to role of other, but which is asking about the role of RSS in the anti-caste movement in India.
See, there is no. They are for Manu Dharma. Before the independence, they are vehemently supporting Manu Dharma to be made as the dharma of independent India. After we attained independence, they opposed the constitution because the constitution, it was said that every citizen is equal before the law, irrespective of caste, gender, religion, language. So they opposed. Actually they want to substitute Indian constitution with Manu Dharma. But gradually, after they assumed power at the center in the recent period, now they are saying there is a samarasya of caste. So a harmonious relation of caste should be established. That is the philosophy now they are proposing, because they want to unify the Hindu followers as against Muslims. So in order to unify, they can't tell now about Manu Dharma. So that's why they changed their tune, although they didn't change their ideology. They are saying the harmonious relations of caste should be there, and these untouchability and this type of evil practices were introduced by Muslim invasion, Muslims. So otherwise, in the earlier golden period, there was no untouchability or evils of caste system. So we'll build that type of caste system in future. That is called, now recently they organized yatras also, samarasya yatras also. That way they try to be more diplomatic with the vocabulary of the caste system, but still they adhere to the caste system. And as modern circumstances demand, the propagation of Manu Dharma in the world form may not be acceptable to the even upper caste people also. So they have subtly changed their presentation of the problem, but still they adhere to the world caste system, division of caste.
Thank you, comrade. And the first question posted by Prahlad, I think which is already covered by the covered in the lecture. But like, if you have anything to add, you can add, comrade. So the question.
One thing, for the first question, I missed one part of the answer. Yeah. Recognizing the weakness of the present anti-caste movements, we started organizing some new forms of anti-caste movements. As a part of that thinking, we started this DSMM. Earlier, we started KVPS in Andhra and TUNF in Tamil Nadu, and Dalit Rights Manch in Karnataka, and even Haryana in Himachal and many places, various types of organizations have started. One important difference between these organizations and other organizations is these organizations, they want to equally give importance to the aspect of annihilation of caste. That means annihilation of caste, a strategic task, not immediate happening. So that aspect is the main difference between the organizations, and we want to become a catalyst in mobilizing all these forces in order to resolve immediate problems and also what the strategic elimination caste system. That is the important difference between these organizations and other organizations. Okay.
Yes, comrade. We can go to the next question, which is asking the left movement, especially the communists, teach their difference to RSS in the way how they look at the caste. They also teach their similarities with Ambedkarites also. But what are the differences with the Ambedkar that the left is having in the fight against caste? The question posted by Ashwin Dev.
See, in my presentation, I have already explained that aspect. One aspect is Baba Saheb Ambedkar is against caste system itself. He wanted to eliminate, to destroy the caste system. There is no reforming the caste system. At the same time, as a pragmatist, he wants to improve the livelihoods of the Dalits in the present society itself. On both these aspects, we have no difference with Baba Saheb Ambedkar. We fully agree with them, and on these aspects, we treat him as the leader of the anti-caste movements and people's movements. Even communists also treat them. The main difference is about the how to destroy the caste system, how to annihilate the caste system. He ultimately, even though he in many writings he said unless capitalism is destroyed, unless feudal landed estates are abolished, unless villages were dismantled, caste system could not be overcome. He many a time he spoke about that, but ultimately he decided to renounce Hinduism and join Buddhism as a solution to the to escape the caste system. So that solution, we are communists, as communists, we are not for that type of solution. Even though we may not attain immediately, but ultimately we have to destroy the feudal land relations which are at the base of the power of the caste system. And now the capitalist system itself wants caste system to continue because it is benefiting by that. It can extract surplus value, super surplus value from the existing caste system. It can create huge labor reserve with the help of Dalits and women and tribals. It can build up huge army of reserve labor. So because of all these benefits, and it can use caste to divide the working class also, so that it can be their struggles can be weakened. That's why capitalism also is one of the reason that the caste system still persists. So these important long-term tasks, although Ambedkar didn't ignore, but he didn't give emphasis to this. But communists never went back on these things, even though they were not destroyed, capitalism and the feudal elements. But until that aspect is realized, the caste can't be eliminated, and the communists are working for that. How many years it will take, as and when that happens, then only caste system can be eliminated. That is the understanding of the communists.
Thank you, comrade. So the next question by Meera, she's asking that who all can be part of anti-caste movement. As students, we can see identity political movements argue that if a caste is facing a discrimination, then the people belonging to that particular caste only can protest against the same, and all others should stay away. So, is it a good model for anti-caste movement?
You see, what is the quarrel with identity movements? Um, the only quarrel is these identity movements ultimately isolate that section from the other communities, other people. These identity movements works like, lives like amoeba. It goes on splitting itself until smaller units. So in that way, these identity movements, unconsciously or consciously, they are responsible for isolation, for weakening of the movement, for the fragmentation of the movements. Ultimately, caste can't be base. Caste can't be caste can't be the base unity because it's inherently uh, um, leads to division of the people. Without, although the community that is being oppressed should be in the forefront, but without help from others also, without seeking, without utilizing the help from other communities, other also you can't attain even electoral power, even the aim of achievement of annihilation of caste. That's why they say SC, ST, BC unity. Why they are bringing all these movements? How can you unify SC communities and BC communities? In most of the country, the dominant BC communities are responsible for the most of the atrocities. Even among Dalits, because of this identity politics, there is serious struggle between, serious conflict between, take for example, in Andhra, Mala Madiga, in Tamil Nadu, and some other Dalit communities. Everywhere, inter-community division is there. Why? It is because of the innate nature of identity politics. So identity politics is going to divide the forces so that the ultimately upper caste Brahminic forces win. The only thing that can unite is through at present society, in the present society, class forces can unite different people from different caste communities. And if the class forces take up the issues of caste oppression, then it can certainly play a positive role. If the class forces don't take the issues of caste oppression, then class forces also will become weak. They also ultimately fail. That is the experience gained through long period of anti-caste movements.
Thank you, comrade. So are there two questions which is like you already covered, and the last question is by Sagar. He is asking, can you please elaborate more on capitalism and the caste system interlinkage, and what could be the possible way to break?
Pardon, I can't hear that. Repeat.
So two questions, which like we have three more questions left, and among that, two questions already covered by you. And the last question is on what is the link between capitalism and the caste system, that how that are interconnected, and can you elaborate more on that, and what could be the possible way to break the chain?
See, actually, structurally, there is no necessity of caste for capitalism. Even though if caste is annihilated, even then capitalism can exploit workers. For continuing capitalism, there is no necessity of caste system. Structurally, that is one thing. Then if there is no necessity of caste for the structural continuance of capitalism, why it is continuing? That is the question. So there are three important reasons. As I mentioned, one important reason is caste system enables the capitalists to earn super profits. I will give one example. If a Dalit and upper caste person do the same type of work, the upper caste person will be paid more and the Dalit will be paid less. The difference is pocketed by the capitalist. So he can earn super profit to the continuation of the caste system. That is one reason. The second reason is the caste, gender, and all these different can be used to build up a huge army of reserve army of labor. So that if a reserve army is there, showing that reserve army, they can bargain with the existing workers and they can reduce the wage of those workers. In that way, with lower wages, with less wages, they can make more profits. That is the second reason. The third reason is whenever workers are not needed, whenever the capitalist wants to fire the workers, he can first remove the tribals, then he can remove women, then he can remove Dalits, because they are vulnerable sections. Because if you remove all these sections, nobody is coming to the view of these workers, because the caste are still strong. The upper caste workers may not immediately respond, and the male workers may not respond, and even Dalit, upper caste, and women may not respond if tribals were removed. In that way, the division, social divisions can be used by the capitalists to divide the workers whenever some necessity arises of removing these workers. Ultimately, this caste system and gender differences will divide the workers because of this. And as the British used religion to divide the people, now the Indian ruling class, capitalist class, is using caste, religion, every type of thing to divide the working class in order to preserve its hegemony over the production system. These are the four reasons the capitalists happy with the caste system in the present society.
By this, we are coming to end of the lecture. We have covered almost every questions, and thank you, comrade, for delivering such a good and elaborative, also insightful lecture on the topic today. And thank you for your time. So this is the last lecture in the series we are conducting. And thank you everyone for joining us today. So, yeah.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
So all the recordings of the all lectures will be available on our YouTube channel.